In a world of darkness, where spirits come alive and demons control thoughts, you find yourself alone, facing the unknown, surrounded by sickening screams and wandering ghosts.
The first story, Don't Make Her Angry, when I married Hind, her mother solemnly warned me, do not anger or sadden her for any reason. She is not like other girls. I didn't think much of this advice, just considering it typical parental caution for a son-in-law. We lived 3 years of normal married life until that fateful night. A simple disagreement between Hind and me escalated into a heated argument. In the end, I stormed out without apologizing. Little did I know, that moment marked the beginning of a series of bizarre events that would change my life forever. The next day, I began noticing strange behavior from Hind. When I returned home in the evening, I found her sitting in a corner of the kitchen, staring blankly at the ceiling. It was then that I first noticed her long black hair, flowing down past her knees, unnaturally shimmering in the dim light. I tried talking to her, but she didn't respond. She just continued staring with an empty gaze, as if seeing something I couldn't. As days passed, her actions grew even stranger. Sometimes I would catch her staring at me in a haunting way, and other times she would silently stand behind me, her gaze unsettling. Things reached a peak one night when I woke up at 2 a.m. thirsty. As I entered the kitchen for water, I was shocked to see Hind standing against the wall, leaning on all fours like a spider, staring at me with an empty, terrifying gaze. I felt like I was in a nightmare, but the pain in my chest confirmed that I was awake. I couldn't bear it any longer. I trembled as I picked up the phone and immediately called her mother. When I told her what was happening, she cut me off with a chilling remark. "Didn't I tell you never to anger or sadden her?" Confused, I asked, "How did you know about our problem?" Her mother replied in a quiet, eerie voice, "Your wife has been with me for the past 2 days. Why haven't you come to reconcile with her?" I froze in place, unable to believe what I was hearing. If Hind was with her mother, who was the one in my house? I looked at Hind, who was now standing in the middle of the room, and remembered the warning. Slowly, her facial features began to change, and an eerie expression surfaced. That's when I realized I was facing something inexplicable. Slowly, Hind started approaching me. Her wide eyes gleamed with madness, and her long hair swayed around her as if it had a life of its own. I tried to retreat, but my legs wouldn't respond. I felt rooted in place. As she came closer, the air around me grew heavier, as if she was draining life from the room. When she reached close to me, she suddenly stopped. She touched my face with her cold hand and said in a voice that wasn't hers, "I warned you." At that moment, I felt an intense coldness engulfing my body, and then everything went black. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital room surrounded by doctors and nurses trying to revive me. They told me I had been in a coma for several days and had been found alone in my house. Later on, I learned that Hind's mother had visited me and informed them that I was under severe psychological stress. But I couldn't shake the feeling that what happened wasn't just a hallucination. Since then, I left Hind and never returned to the house that witnessed those horrifying events. People say I lost my mind, but I know the truth. There are things in this world that defy explanation, and old spirits that inhabit places and seek revenge on those who defy their warnings. I learned my lesson well, and I will never forget it. The second story, The Evil Child. A horror story about a man killed by a crazy child in a house full of blood. It was a stormy, dark night. Ahmed was driving his car down a deserted road in the countryside after a long business trip in the city. He was tired and troubled, longing to be with his wife and young son who were waiting for him at home. Suddenly, his car stopped for no apparent reason. He heard a disturbing noise from the engine. He tried to restart it, but it wouldn't turn on. Looking at the fuel gauge, he saw it was empty, even though he had filled the tank before leaving the city. He felt anxious and scared, stranded in the middle of nowhere with no cars or buildings in sight. He checked his phone, but found no signal. His only means of contacting the outside world was useless. Desperation and isolation crept in as he wondered what his wife and son would do if he didn't make it home, and what would happen to him if he stayed there all night. He decided to leave the car and search for help, hoping there might be a house or farm nearby. Ahmed took his phone, keys, and flashlight, stepping out of the car into the cold and damp air. The wind was strong, and the sky was filled with dark clouds. Lightning illuminated the darkness, and thunder shook the ground. Heavy rain drenched his clothes and hair as he started walking along the roadside, hoping to find a sign or clue to guide him in the right direction. After half an hour of walking with no success, he felt exhausted, hungry, and thirsty. He considered returning to his car and waiting until morning, hoping someone might pass by and help. Just then, he saw something in the distance, a large, dark shape emerging from the trees. It looked like a house. Ahmed felt a glimmer of hope, thinking that the house might be inhabited and that someone there could help him. He quickened his pace, ignoring his fatigue and the cold. But as he approached the house, a sense of dread washed over him. The house was old and abandoned, with broken windows, cracked doors, peeling walls, and a leaky roof. The garden was overgrown with weeds and debris. Something was wrong with this house, something eerie and revolting, something evil. Ahmed stopped at the front door, hesitating to go inside. He felt he shouldn't be there, that the house was not meant for him. He felt that something was waiting for him inside, something he didn't want to see. But he had no other choice. He needed help. He needed to contact his wife and son. He needed to get out of there. He gently pushed the door open, hearing the wood creak. He stepped inside and called out, "Is anyone there?" But received no answer. The house was dark and dilapidated. He saw bloodstains on the floor and walls, and upside-down pictures of a happy family. Ahmed wondered what had happened here, who these people were, and where they were now. He continued to search for a landline phone, a mobile phone, or anything else he could use, but instead found something more horrifying. In the living room, he saw the headless body of a woman lying on the couch, her eyes wide open as if staring at him. On the table, her head sat with a sinister smile on her face. Next to it, a man lay dead with a knife in his chest, holding a note that read, "I'm sorry. I did this for you." Ahmed screamed in terror, unable to believe what he was seeing. He tried to escape but found the door locked. He attempted to break it open but failed. He felt someone watching him and turned to see a small child standing in the corner, wearing blood-stained clothes and holding a torn doll. The child looked at him with empty eyes and whispered, "Welcome to hell." Ahmed was terrified. He didn't know who this child was or what he wanted. He tried to talk to him, asking, "Who are you? What do you want from me?" But the child didn't answer. Instead, he began to laugh in a creepy voice, threw the doll on the ground, took out a knife from his pocket, and started approaching Ahmed slowly. Ahmed felt paralyzed with fear. He had no weapon or place to hide. He was trapped in this cursed house with this insane child. He knew he wouldn't leave alive. He knew he would never see his wife and son again. He knew he wouldn't survive this nightmare. Just as the child was about to reach him, Ahmed heard another sound, a familiar and comforting one, his wife's voice. "Ahmed, Ahmed, where are you?" He heard her voice coming from his phone. He looked at his phone, which was ringing. His wife was calling him, worried about him, waiting for him. Ahmed felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe there was a chance to survive. Maybe he could call her and ask for help. Maybe he could get out of there. He tried to reach for his phone, but it was lying on the ground next to the couch. He had to get past the corpses and the child to reach it. He had to risk his life, but he was willing to do anything to get back to his family. He was ready to fight. Ahmed leaped onto the couch, trying to bypass the child, but the child was faster. The child stabbed him in the leg, causing him to fall to the ground. Ahmed screamed in pain, feeling the blood flowing from his wound. He felt weak and dizzy, unable to move. The child stood over him, raising the knife again, about to stab him in the heart. "Ahmed, Ahmed, what's happening? Answer me." He heard his wife's voice crying out from the phone. The phone was just inches away from his hand. He had to reach out and grab it. He had to talk to her. He had to tell her he loved her. He had to say goodbye. Ahmed reached out with difficulty, grabbed the phone, and raised it to his ear. In a weak voice, he said, "Honey, I'm sorry. I'm in danger. I'm in an abandoned house, on a road. I don't know where. There's a child trying to kill me. I'm hurt. I'm scared. He couldn't finish the sentence. He felt something sharp pierce his chest. The pain was intense. He felt life slipping away from him. He looked at the child and saw the sinister smile. He looked at the knife and saw his blood. He looked at the phone and saw his wife's name. He looked at the sky and saw lightning. Then he saw nothing. Ahmed? Ahmed? What happened? Are you okay? Ahmed? Ahmed? Answer me. Answer me. He heard his wife's voice crying from the phone. He couldn't answer. He was dead. Bay.